Good evening, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressing. This is your other host.
Christina Fasonic, I'm over here.
I pointed over there.
Not on my screen, you didn't. So, how are you this evening, Damian?
I'm excited about our reader tonight.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I can't wait to hear her read. And would you like me to tell our audience a little bit about her?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let me do that. I will pull up her bio. So, Allison Pitinii Davis is the author of Line Study of a Motel Clerk from Baobab Press 2017, a finalist for the National Jewish Book Award and the Ohioana Book Award, and Poppy Seeds from Kent State University Press 2013, winner of the Wick Poetry Chapbook Prize. Her creative writing and scholarship have appeared in Best American Poetry, Poets.org, the Oxford American, the New Republic, Studies in American Jewish Literature, and elsewhere. She has received fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, Stanford University's Wallace Stegner program, the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and the Hadassah-Brandeis Institute. In fall 2025, she will join Ohio State University as a visiting assistant professor in poetry. So let's bring her out.
We should bring her out, yeah.
Hi, Allison.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yes, on this soggy evening here. We had sun and it was hot, and I'm like, summer, and then now it's back to whatever this weather is, that in between swampy blah. So what will you be reading this evening?
You know, I've switched like 3 times, but I think I'm set on I'm going to read one poem from my book, because what would have been my grandparents' 75th wedding anniversary. So I'm going to read one about my grandfather, who grew up in Niles, Ohio, so in Northeast Ohio. And then I'm going to read one poem from my manuscript in progress called Outskirts, which is about Northern Appalachia and the Rust Belt. And then I'm going to read one poem from another manuscript I have called Excessive Neighborhoods.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Which is also about wheeling. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love a wheeling poem.
Oh, yes. Lots of wheeling stuff.
Yes, my heart. Anyways, we will listen, and we'll be back when you're done.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Christine and Damian. And I'm going to start with, again, one about my grandfather, my mom's dad, who ran a laundry in Northeast Ohio. From the back room of the laundry, Niles, Ohio. His father died young, and his grandfathers were strangers across the sea. So it's the smile of a Greek tailor that he describes so carefully that I can see it. The smile pressed and sharply folded by my grandfather, who has outlived everyone he wants to talk to the point that I suffice this afternoon in Niles in his high-ceiling laundry, so full of steam that I can barely see him. But it is something just to barely see a grandfather close his eyes like the lion before the movies as his huge head falls and swings back up to some insane summit from which he booms. His smile was something to see. Do you hear me? It was something to see. I'm going to read, again, just 2 more. This first one is from my manuscript Outskirts, which is about the Rust Belt in Northern Appalachia, especially its auto strikes, and then poems about parenthood, and then poems about language. In Outskirts, every poem is a hybrid poem. It starts out with a lineated lyric poem followed by a prose poem. And this format was a solution to a problem I was having, which was how to integrate research into the poems. And kind of the problem of how can I have both kind of this more vernacular voice in a collection and this more scholarly voice. And I decided to just put them both. And so between the poems, there's a pause. I think of the pause as kind of, or the break as kind of this no man's land. And sometimes the poems are kind of moving towards each other and explaining each other. Sometimes they're very pushing each other away and contradicting each other. And it enacts kind of the constant battle I have in my mind between these different voices, different versions of myself. This one talks about pinning money to statues of the Virgin Mary, which you've seen if you're Catholic, or if you're not Catholic like me, but you've been to a lot of, you've lived in the Rust Belt where everyone's Catholic. Also, my advance apologies for pronunciations of a lot of Chinese words in the second half of this. Advance apologies for my pronunciation of most English words too. Yeah, this one's called Keep It Up. Oh, also adult themes and languages. If there's kids around, I like to say that. Keep it up. There are ways out. I wore a white eyelet skirt like a suffix. It altered what I meant. I meant to leave. I applied. I timed ovulations. Blood tithe on a skirt from Youngstown and a Mother Mary pinned with dollars. But out west, they don't take to superstitions. In a workshop in California, a poet said, "If you keep it up much longer, you'll become a regionalist." In bed with my husband in West Virginia, I say, if you keep it up much longer, you'll become a regionalist. Monogamy is a kind of regionalism, or the other way around. At the Working Class Studies Conference in Youngstown, Ohio, I thought the most interesting paper was given by a scholar from Italy about the transnational Rust Belt. I wanted to ask the California poet, in this context, is my work not actually global? There are plenty of intelligent Marxists and blue jeans who would defend me with aggression disproportionate to the conflict. While he gave his paper, I thought how I'd like to visit these Rust Belts, not as disaster tourism, but to find others who don't consider enthusiasm a virtue. In Down and Out in China's Rust Belt, Wu Weiyuan reports on a bar nicknamed the Pauper's Paradise in Shenyang, an area that used to be so prosperous that Chairman Mao called it Lao Da, eldest son. The owner opened the bar with her savings after losing her job and approximates that still, 30 years later, 30% of her customers are laid off workers. She is unsure about the future of the business. Her kids don't want to take it over. One beer, a fizzy golden pitcher, costs 6 yuan, about 82 cents. I'll close with one poem from another manuscript I'm working on called Excessive Neighborhoods. And this is kind of a strange form I made up where the last line of every stanza is the first line of the next stanza, and then the final stanza is made up of the end lines of all the stanzas before it. And in this manuscript, a lot of the poems, I'm thinking about neighborhoods, both thematically, but also kind of structurally, and the poems kind of, the stanzas kind of serve as neighborhoods that have weird kind of connections throughout. This one is called Neighborhood, Vienna, Austria, Wheeling, West Virginia. Mid-July, Vienna, the Succession Museum, the thick ivory pate and bronze militancy of our honeymoon, Alex DeCourt's slow graffiti, its random trash in crouched neighborhoods. Arm in arm, we stroll through them, a red skirt pleated on my peasant thighs. On my peasant thighs, walking my neighborhood in West Virginia, early spring, the days widening, lilacs guttered with snow, Monday, a cusp, a clasp, garbage night, 2 Betwood chairs in the alley. I carry one back with me and return for the other in my car. The weave a little busted. I'm sitting on one now, the shape pushing into my back like I was a great thinker of Vienna. Like I was a great thinker of Vienna, I went to the Succession to see the Beethoven frieze, which was looted by Nazis, which rightfully belongs to the Lederer family. In the gallery upstairs was DeCourt's slow graffiti. July 2017, I turned 32 the day before in the Venice ghetto. Part of the exhibit, strange little setups, all over a surreal pointlessness, neighborly little Rust Belt, used, unusable, a kind of fractured cityscape full of dysfunctional objects, the exhibit notes call it, the verve of an invisible city, one that exists only in someone's imagination, but takes shape here. That takes shape here and is dismantled, the space between viewer and art, and, quote, emptiness which is not nothingness, but rather the emptiness of many of our assumptions about our separateness, by which I mean you can't get too close to the art, is a misreading of the air's connectivity, its desire. Connectivity, its desire, I mean, Mid-July, Vienna, the Succession Museum, on my peasant thighs, like I was a great thicker of Vienna that takes shape here. Thank you.
Well, I had some things to say, but I think I'm going to start with, holy crap, can you write? That was really wonderful.
I hope my dad is watching.
Yes.
That's why
I'm gonna make them good at this.
I didn't want to. No, it was amazing work. This is terrific, and the formal innovation, and in concert with the line by line writing, the wonderful confidence of the language. This, like you really know who you're talking to, people. I liked all three of the poems, and almost equally. I loved it in the first one. You're such a terrific scene setter. Mm. So it's such economy, and there's a delicious urgency to the work, which is a hard thing to do when talking about the past.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really love the first poem as well, and that last refrain, his smile was something else. Of course, having multiple meanings, and in that moment, and it made me think about we even when we do appreciate our grandparents while we have them, we don't really, even when we do, right? And I was thinking a lot about that, and then I really love the second poem, monogamy as a kind of real regionalism, and I did want to say I've heard that comment on my own work before, that well, if you keep writing about this place, then people will think you're regionalist, and nobody's going to care about your work except for people in that region. And a lot about being a writer from here is fighting against that and also accepting it.
And also it's, pretty classist, right? Because they don't say that to writers from New York who only write about New York.
Or
so
LA.
The idea that if you're writing about Appalachia, the Rust Belt, that you're a regionalist, even though many people write primarily about one region, is I think super problematic. And I never even knew, because I only went to college in Ohio until I went to California. So it was the first time I even realized that, like, oh, I really do write about this place a lot. So it was really an important comment for me to get, for better or worse, because it made me both, double down on my commitment to writing about this region, but also just the knowledge that how people think of it, which is a lot what my new what Outskirts is about. One poem in that book is called Dialogue and Background Music, and it talks about when Night of the Living Dead came out, which of course was made in Pittsburgh. Its review in the New York Times was 3 sentences, and was basically like word for word, like, this movie was like, this is like a shitty movie made by some people in Pittsburgh. So like, it's this very kind of long history of national reviewers not taking work from this region seriously. So my book is definitely also an investigation of that. Often, sometimes it's an actual critical investigation, but I also just try to be funny, which I think is also a really crucial thing about this region, is people using humor defensively and offensively. And because, I think it's, obviously, I think it's like, the best work in the country coming out of this region. But
well, especially now, I think we're experiencing our literary renaissance in the northern part of Appalachia and the Rust Belt, and I agree with you. People think that art with a big A can't possibly come from here, and we're all proving them wrong. And
and just the class too. It's like when I think about my grandfather, who absolutely, if he had his parents were immigrants who came here very poor from Greece. He didn't speak English at home until he spoke Greek at home until he went to school. Ended up going back to college, finishing college as an adult. Ran his own business. Did not have. If he would have had the opportunities I would have had, he for sure could have been. Gotten his PhD, been an artist. and I think so many people in this region, that's, the stories are coming from, is there haven't been a lot of generations that have even, had an opportunity to go to college, and I definitely feel like I am, the culmination of many generations of my family who were so creative and worked so hard and just, didn't have the privilege that I had. And I think so many of my students in this region have a similar background. And so it's
there's
a lot
still
of stories.
Plenty of first gens. There's still plenty of first gens out there. I think sometimes, one generation is like, okay, yeah, now there's more, but there's still plenty of those first gen kids out there that are coming to us into our classrooms and saying that, I'm here because of all that came before me. Yes. So, yeah.
Well, I also think the idea of the global Rust Belt, that's a deeply profound concept as a way to, certainly it answers back to the idea of regionalism on one level, but it's also like, no, this is something that's, happening in sort of very broad ways through tremendous geographic swaths.
And truly, I mean, at the first section of my book, there's 3 sections. The first section, I think I talk about like at least 6 or 7 other international Rust Belts, and I, bring in research from those regions, or other poets writing about those regions. There's the Japanese poet Tatako Arai writes about a region of Japan that used to be known for its textiles, that now it's just, abandoned factories. And in the actual introduction to that book, I think it's one of the translators compares where she's from in the economy now to Youngstown, Ohio, which is where I'm from now. It's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get these poems, and, it's about, one line of hers is like trying to salvage like 1 suitcase worth of pure junk, like from her, dad's factory. And I'm like, yeah. So it's, not only not regionalism, it's part of, global deindustrialization and all of these stories that have been kind of, trampled that people are writing about. And definitely a global movement.
It's almost like they want to say, no, that's just you.
Yeah.
Rather than, admit that this is a large scale global issue.
Oh, yeah.
It's being marginalized that way.
And I'm pretty sure that I was also on a panel at one point with that scholar from Italy that you referenced. Because awesome. He talked about the global Rust Belt and also, the marginalization of people from these areas, and how the same things that are happening to us in Appalachia, this, don't complain about your lot in life, be lucky with what you have, deal with what, and all those, and the ramifications to our environment too, and what is left behind once the factories close and the coal mines are closed, and, what are we left with? But,
and there's, sorry, there's also, and I write about this in the book, it's, it was an article from the region in Germany's Rust Belt, where they talk about how, they cut a lot of funding to schools, to the arts. But the one thing they preserved funding for was the theater, because that was, for so many children, their only access to art. So, I mean, any art coming out of these deindustrialized Rust Belt and Appalachian regions is really coming out, it gets great odds from these areas where, like, there's already not enough money. It's certainly not going to be invested into art, whereas, people in bigger cities, you're surrounded by arts. Children have a lot of artistic opportunities. So I think, any art that's coming out of these regions is, very hard won. It's because people really care about preserving it. And it's, it's not a game, you know what I mean? Like, so I really feel connected to other writers who are writing in deindustrialized places, because it's, generally not an easy path to take in these areas.
So, Allison, could you do us a favor and show us the covers of your books? So we have.
This is Line Study of a Motel Clerk.
I'm trying to.
Published by Baobab Press. And I have a novella somewhere around here.
I didn't realize. I thought it was on the desk.
No, this is just a novella. This is back when Wick had the wonderful Wick Chapbook series, of which many Ohio writers got our starts. And then my other 2 manuscripts are, I should know the names of them, Outskirts and excessive neighborhoods. And I actually also have a novella coming out called Business, which is also from Baobab Press. And that's about two girls in Youngstown, Ohio, kind of the late 70s. And one works on an auto line and one works at a trucking motel, which is my background. And this weird, it's really about the nightlife. I always so jealous of my mom, my aunts talking about going out dancing in downtown Youngstown, in the late 70s and the 80s. And there's some of it still, but there was just like this great culture of like working class bars because all the mills were open, the auto lines were open. So there was this big, as I'm sure there was in Wheeling too, I just don't know. But so it's kind of the story is really, I did a lot of interviewing people about what these bars were like. So it's kind of about the nightlife of working class women in Youngstown, kind of on the brink of deindustrialization, and how their stories kind of become intertwined.
Very cool. And when is that going to come out?
That comes out in September, I believe.
Awesome. We'd love to have you maybe back to give us a little.
I would love to come back. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
We will see you at the conference in September as well.
Yeah, the conference. Thank you for organizing it. It's so exciting.
It is going to be absolutely.
Wait, the conference. Christina, tell them about the conference.
Yeah, so
what can they do? How can they attend this conference?
Registration is open for the Writers Association.
And where can they find the registration form?
At our website, Writers Association of Northern Appalachia.org. And, we still have until June 30th. We'll be accepting early bird registration.
And you save money.
I'm registered.
These crazy Eddie commercials.
Allison has registered already. Be like Allison and register for a conference.
Give them your money.
It's going to be fantastic. We're all really looking forward to it. And what a fun place to have it in a great historic building in Wheeling. So
beautiful.
We have some people who have comments. Let's do that before we go. So Davis Motel says, I am, and I assume that person, there we go.
That is my father.
That's what I thought. And
hi, Dad.
And then Heather Hahn says, looking forward to seeing you at the WANA conference, Allison. And Heather's been on our committee and working on our program with us. And thank you, Heather, for doing that. And we look forward to seeing everybody in September, but we won't see you next week. We are on a short break next week, but WANA Live will be back.
And thank you so much for tuning in. Looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties there. Allison, thank you so much for reading. That was
thank you.
Terrific work. Are those available on Bookshop?
Yes.
Super cool. Really love the work. And Christina's back.
Yep. I'm here. I didn't go away, did I?
You did. But I said goodbye to the people, and thank you, Allison. And I think we can close it out. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.